everyone, welcome back to the Hardware News Recap for the week. We have a packed episode for you. First of all, Schrodinger's Steam Machine and Steam Frame. It is both launched and not launched in 2026, as long as you don't open the orange box. Nintendo sues America. That's right. The full-time law firm, part-time game publisher Nintendo, is deploying its lawyers to a worthy opponent. Not just some kid making an emulator in the basement anymore. Now they're going after other people who also have very expensive lawyers. So I'm sure the taxpayers will love that. Quake 3 Remix looks pretty cool. I like the Unreal Tournament, the Quake games. The arena shooters were just a really special time in FPS history, and there is a remix of that mod that looks pretty awesome. YMTC and CXMT are getting more spread now, so there's a new YMTC SSD, and then also a YouTuber abusing the copyright strike system to DMCA claim criticisms of videos. So that's good. We'll talk about that too. Lots to go over. Let's get into it. Before that, this video is brought to you by Arctic and their MX7 thermal paste. Arctic's new MX7 is a higher viscosity paste, with Arctic claiming that the increase in viscosity from filler content and the texture benefit improve its performance while reducing the risk of the pump out effect over time. MX7 is intended for longer endurance applications and to be left in use for extended service life. Arctic also now has a counterfeit paste checking website because, believe it or not, knockoff paste from non-first-party sources is actually relatively common for the big brands to experience, so they have a site to check the validity of it. Get a tube of Arctic's MX7 thermal paste at the link in the description below. First up, brief update on our side. We have another documentary-style edit. That'll go up next Friday, so we've done 2 huge documentaries the last 2 Fridays, and we hope to keep that up as frequently as we can. This week, the team and I need a break on the huge edits. Doing 2 back-to-back was a lot. So we're gonna run a different large video on Friday instead, and then the next Friday, we'll do another big documentary. We've done Sega, the DRAM cartel, and we have another one coming up. The plan is to keep that up kind of as long as we can until the team and I just need a break from producing these big videos. But we might do some sort of almost like seasonal deployment of the big documentary edits, and then, you know, take a short break whenever that point is that we need a break. So anyway, we're really hitting the stride with these special videos, and I like making them. So we've got another one coming up. So the last 2 weeks, we ran our DRAM cartel history piece with some contemporary commentary at the end. This is a nearly 90-minute long-form documentary featuring a lot of historic footage and newspaper clippings that we dug for to give context to the decades-long literal cartel behavior of the memory industry. And that's not just my word either. That's like, I saw someone who was like, Steve, stop calling it a cartel, it's hyperbole. Just so we're clear, one of the memory makers called it a cartel in an email to another memory maker that was like, hey, there's laws against cartels. And then the DOJ prosecuted them as a cartel. So just so we're clear, the cartel thing, that's not my word. That's like proven at this point for over 2 decades. So anyway, it's a really fun video. You should check that out if you haven't seen it. The one before that was our Sega police raid documentary, which was travel intensive, performed great. A lot of people watched it, so we really appreciate everyone checking that out. To support the documentary, we launched our brand new Wireframe V2 mouse mat for the DRAM cartel documentary. The mouse mat is up now. It's a follow-up to our most popular GN Store item ever, the Wireframe V1 mat. V2 was also made by Andrew and Blender. It's all hand done by humans. Sadly, we have to say now, it's going to become a lost art, I guess, the art itself. But Andrew made it in Blender. So it's actually really sick the way we do these. There's some behind the scenes stuff. I don't even mean this as a promotional thing. I just mean I just want to appreciate Andrew's work here. So it's obviously represented in 2D. This is a flat surface, but he makes this in 3D. And this is how we do all our designs, actually, including the t-shirts. And then he flattens it to like an oblique angle. So he does a top-down camera in Blender, which is 3D software, to create this. And the really cool shit with that approach is, and we'll play a clip of it, that means there's an actual 3D environment that's created of this, which is a wireframe city of CPU coolers. There's a reservoir water tower, and you can see like the wireframe water levels are represented in a really sick way. That was Andrew's idea. And then you can even see the impeller underneath it. And this is also something people won't even notice, even if they buy it. The keycaps here, so the actual keyboard keys on the mouse mat, represented roughly where the keyboard goes, those are modeled down to the springs. I'm not joking. I don't think you can see the spring in the print because there's the switch over top of it, so that hides it. But we'll show a clip of it. if you go in the Blender model for this two-dimensional surface of the mouse mat, there is a three-dimensional rendering of the spring in the keycap, all right? So there's a lot of detail in this, so much that you can't even see all of it because it's represented in 2 dimensions on a flat surface. But anyway, that's on the store. Got a bunch of other cool stuff too. I mean, there's highways made out of DRAM because they cost the same as literal infrastructure now for buildings. And then we also used custom blue stitching for the border and a really nice blue rubber underside that we manually source. If you want to support our DRAM cartel documentary and the next one's coming up, you can go to store.gamersnexus.net to grab one of the mouse mats to fit your keyboard and mouse. Alternatively, if you just want to send us a few bucks one time, you can scroll to the bottom of the store page and find a donate button. Also, just some quick interesting numbers, stats on the DRAM documentary production side. If anyone's curious about like behind the scenes what it takes to make these videos, I did collect those numbers. So I basically, for these types of projects, I tell the team, all right, we've got a blank check. Let's make it good. And then I'll worry about figuring out how to pay for it later, which is what the mouse mat is. But on the stats, so not counting the time I spent on it, we've got 179 hours and 20 minutes on writing and research. We have 66 hours and 50 minutes of editing and artwork, 7 hours of additional quality control after it was done being edited. On my side, about 50 hours of fact checking and QC pre and during editing, and then some docu-style editing. And then as far as the distribution of that, so Tannen did the bulk of the research and writing. Vitalii did the arrangement of the edit. That means he was producing it, basically. And then everyone was involved in the edit for various parts. So Mike, Andrew, and Tim all jumped in for different pieces of the edit. We had 4 editors working on it to wrap it quickly. Vitalii arranged it into a final. I did the track and the story weaving aspects with some of the historic footage. Tannen worked on the writing research. Ben assisted with some of the links finding for contemporary news stories, stuff like that. So it was a big project, pretty much everyone involved. And anyway, check that out on the channel. Let's move on to the first story, which is Schrodinger's Steam machine. So Valve recently posted a year in review 2025 article on its Steam store page, and that got picked up a lot of places. The first place I saw it was Reddit, where a user noticed that Valve had a particular sentence that was concerning in its blog post. That was then picked up by, as far as I saw, The Verge. I think I saw it on Video Cards, a couple other places. And relating to the Steam machine and the Steam frame, Valve's original year in review post in the article said that it, quote, hopes to ship in 2026, end quote for that. Valve has since updated the post, but that was contrary to its original commitment of shipping early 2026 or first half 2026, changing it to hopes to ship 2026, which obviously set off some alarm bells for people. Fortunately, for anyone who was worried about that, Valve has come out to say, oops, no, we didn't mean that. This is the post that's currently on Valve's page. It says, quote, we shared recently that there have been some challenges with memory and storage shortages, but we will be shipping all 3 products this year. More updates will be shared as we finalize our plans, end quote. Here, Valve is referencing its prior post that memory and storage demand have made pricing decisions difficult. The key sentence, though, was Valve stating the, quote, we will be shipping all 3 products this year, end quote, making a pretty definitive comment on it. The original version of this, as preserved by Video Cards, reads, quote, we hope to ship in 2026, but as we shared previously, memory and storage shortages have created challenges for us. We'll share updates publicly when we finalize our plans, exclamation point, end quote. Citing SteamDB, Video Cards highlighted that SteamDB's page for the various Steam hardware devices indicates recent updates. As of writing this on March 8th, Valve's most recent updates were on March 6th. This includes a change to the release date of coming soon for the Steam machine, plus updates to images and release status. The Verge received a statement from Valve. The publication, which is now paywalled, wrote, quote, but after we initially published this article about Valve's post, Valve PR representative told The Verge that, quote, nothing has actually changed on our end, end quote. It's good to get a double dose of reassurance, primarily because the Steam machine's hardware, which uses a Zen 4 6-core 12-thread CPU and an RDNA 328CU GPU, will show its age the longer Valve waits. If Valve were to get pushed into 2027, which it is now committing to not doing, it's saying 2026, that RDNA 3 part would likely show its age the fastest. Now, Valve publicly announced its Steam machine on November 12th last year, but it held its press event obviously earlier than that. Pulling up PC Part Picker, the memory price spike had already begun at that time, although it wasn't nearly as bad. At the time Valve spoke to the press about its then secret announcement, RAM was about double what it had been 4 to 6 weeks prior. Although that was still up, and of course Valve had already been in development for years, the RAM being double what it was weeks prior was still half what it is now, which is an insane statement to say. So unfortunately, consumers are going to pay for these prices, of course. It's going to affect the Steam Machine and the Steam Frame in some capacity, or at least some of other Valve's products to maybe compensate, subsidize. It just comes down to how much negotiating power Valve has, if any, with the DRAM makers, and also how much they're willing to absorb cost in their margins to help affordability for people, or if they're going to try and get it back somewhere else, like just through Steam game sale expectations or something. But definitely going to affect the pricing somewhere, and that's going to affect the price that people pay. As for the rest of Valve's post, its year in review 2025 topic also discusses the Steam platform, mostly improvements, discoverability, deals systems for developers and gamers, but Valve also covers its overhaul to the Discovery queue, which it now says has a cleaner UI, the addition of calendars for game launch tracking, and some data and analytics changes that mostly talk about developer benefits. One interesting fact is at the bottom of the post, it says, quote, "We've grown at a pace of around 3.4 million additional concurrent users per year, reaching 42 million peak concurrent users. All those users are downloading a lot of content. In 2024, we delivered about 80 exabytes to customers, and in 2025, that grew to 100 exabytes. It's hard to make sense of such a huge number, but just for fun, Steam users are averaging 274 petabytes of installs and updates per day. That's 11.42 petabytes per hour, which is about 190,000 gigabytes of data per minute," end quote. At least we're getting our money's worth out of the internet service providers. I don't know. That's a lot of video games. That's cool. Up next, as we said in the intro, full-time law firm, part-time game publisher and developer Nintendo is sicking its lawyers on a worthy opponent, and that is going to be America. They're suing America. Like literally all of it. It's insane. In this episode of Bullies Bullying the Bully, Nintendo is suing over the unlawful manner in which President Trump implemented tariffs last year, following the recent Supreme Court ruling that ruled the tariffs could not be applied under the IEEPA, which I insist on pronouncing as IEEPA. Nintendo's complaint wrote, quote, "This action concerns defendants, that's America, initiation and administration of unlawful trade measures," end quote, and that, quote, "defendants have imposed adjusted and expanded coverage of IEEPA duties," end quote, further stating that, quote, "plaintiff," that's Nintendo, "imports goods from countries impacted by the IEEPA duties and has paid the duties," end quote. Nintendo cites court rulings against the tariffs as implemented, including the recent Supreme Court ruling, and it's point 6 on page 3. The parties named include Nintendo as the plaintiff, which flexes by writing that the defendant is, quote, "the United States of America," end quote, which must be Nintendo's lawyers' ult. You know they were excited about that one. They also named the defendants as U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Rodney Scott, Commissioner of CBP, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, former secretary now of the Department of Homeland Security, who was just fired. Maybe this was the one that pushed it over the ledge for Trump. Maybe he fired her because Nintendo is suing them, and her specifically. I don't know, like legal game recognizes legal game or something. They also named the U.S. Department of Treasury, Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, U.S. Department of Commerce, and Howard Lutnick, Epstein BFF, and Secretary of Commerce. So when they say they are suing as the defendant the United States of America, they mean it. That's like all of the offices, basically, at least the ones that matter for this. Nintendo's lawyers go on to lay out a timeline of tariffs starting with February 1st. The timeline mostly spells out the chaos of the tariffs as applied, highlighting the day-to-day changes. Nintendo calls upon the court to prohibit defendants, again, that's the USA, from liquidating or collecting IEEPA duties, requests the reliquidation of any liquidated entries, and demands a refund with interest, including attorney's fees. Now, you might be wondering where the interest and the attorney's fees for Nintendo and the attorney's fees for the US government and the tariff money might come from, and that's the fun part. It's all of us. We're gonna pay for it. The consumers paid for it when the prices went up because the companies had to get the money back from somewhere, so they didn't lose money when the tariffs were changing all the time, and then the prices won't go back down, so the consumers will pay for it there, and then the interest on the tariffs that were collected that might be refunded, that'll have to come from the consumers also, and then also the tariff money itself, and then also the lawyers' fees. So it's all coming from us. That's what I'm getting at here. So anyone in the gaming space knows that, contrary to what you might think, Nintendo's lawyers don't play games. So they've been training for a lawsuit like this. This is, I gotta say, normally we're covering when Nintendo is shaking down the little guy and knocking offline some student project emulator for playing games that you legally own and purchased 40 years ago. This time, though, this is something they've been slowly powering up for for decades. Next one. Speaking of disappointments, Microslop staff recently tweeted about the future of Xbox, which now will be launched under the leadership of the newly appointed CEO named Asha Sharma after Spencer's and Bond's departures previously. The new Microsoft gaming CEO is a career executive, including positions at SC Johnson, Facebook, Instacart, and a board member position at Home Depot. Sharma's prior gaming experience appears to be zero, and her most recent role at Microsoft was as the president of the AI division, which tells you exactly the direction that Microsoft is taking its gaming. Anyway, the new Xbox got a brief teaser on Twitter, with Xbox tweeting, quote, "The next generation of Xbox console, Project Helix," end quote, and then it's got a trailer that's so short we'll probably have to loop it a few times just to cover this section. It is a logo. Microsoft Gaming CEO Asha tweeted some more information, quote, "Great start to the morning with Team Xbox, where we talked about our commitment to the return of Xbox," end quote. You always know it's someone in executive management positions when they get excited about talking about doing work at some point in the future, before which point they will probably talk about doing the work again. Quote, "Project Helix will lead in performance and play your Xbox and PC games. Looking forward to chatting about this more with partners and studios at my first GDC next week," end quote. GDC is a fun event. It's a good event for that kind of announcement, so we'll pay attention to it. It could be something important. There's rumors that it'll be expensive, whatever it is, but that's, I mean, at this point, if it's got a stick of RAM in it or a couple modules, it's going to be expensive. So that's all we have for now on that one. The next one is short. Our Rise of Chinese Memory documentary talked about CXMT and YMTC, which make DRAM and Flash NAND, respectively, here. And YMTC in particular has had a strong technology foundation for its flash storage before it got banned by the US. And then more recently, we covered these companies getting unbanned, but then rebanned again, and it's kind of in limbo right now. But anyway, both companies are in the news the past week. Found via Tech Power Up and linked to a tweet, some Lenovo ThinkBook laptops have surfaced with CXMT LPCAMM2 memory. The module shown is a 32 gigabyte solution. Mostly this is just interesting because the major manufacturers are beginning to adopt the newcomer's memory. As for YMTC, they just launched their new PC550 SSD and 512 gig, 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte options. The page, machine translated, says that this drive uses the company's X-Tacking 4.0 technology. We previously covered YMTC's X-Tacking in our documentary, where the company bonds the two wafers as a solution to both bypass manufacturing limitations of China and to increase density. The marketing claims a 10.5 gigabyte per second read and 10 gigabyte per second write speed. They haven't yet listed a price at the time of writing this. Just as a fun one that I personally wanted to put in here, the StarCraft tabletop miniatures game that was announced some time ago now has prices, sort of, and a pre-order date. We're filming this before the pre-order goes live. So I'm not sure exactly what they're going to put on that page when I'm filming this, but mostly we're just covering this because I think that Command & Conquer, Age of Empires, StarCraft, as far as RTSs go anyway, were foundational for early PC gaming, and games like Heroes of Might and Magic are in there as well for establishing it. So I still play Brood War even today, actually, on the US West server, if anyone wants to play a use map setting game. Anyway, the new StarCraft miniatures game that's coming out soon is made by Archon Studios, which also makes the Heroes of Might and Magic 3 board game. I haven't played that one yet either, but I was seriously considering buying it just as a big fan of Heroes of Might and Magic 3. I still play that too. They're now making a fully licensed StarCraft tabletop minis game though. The initial sets announced include a 2-player kit with Terran and Zerg units at $200, which is about in line with other name brand licensed miniatures games out there. It comes with 19 Terran units, 33 Zerg, a bunch of dice, and buildings and terrain pieces. The armies are built on a point system similar to other minis games, though we're not sure how it works yet. They also have a separate Protoss kit, because look, let's be real, let's be honest with ourselves, it's Protoss, so of course it gets special treatment. The Protoss kit is $110 and includes 15 minis. It looks like they're selling effectively booster packs of other minis from around $35 to $50 or so, including Vikings, what looks like Marauders, Queens, Zealots, High Templar, Stalkers, and some others. I haven't personally followed this too closely. I didn't do a lot of digging on this one. I mean, this is less of a report and more of a, hey, I thought this was kind of interesting, and I will probably buy one of these at some point. So anyway, I'm going to pay attention to it. I don't know if anyone cares or not, but I just thought it was cool to see StarCraft being reprised in some way. Hopefully it gets a more serious reprisal in a game sense, as in video games in the future as well. Up next, a number of modders have rebuilt Quake 3 with Remix, the NVIDIA modding software solution. And this is getting new additions as well, mostly particle effect stuff. But game modding is how I especially got started with, I don't know, just like more seriously learning about computers. where I remember the first time I encountered zipped files and needing to learn how, actually I think it was RARs, but needing to learn how to unrar them was Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, when I was doing some skin modding or something like that. But anyway, modding's very, very special to me because that's how I used to really get involved in the technology of the games. I did a lot of map editing and some modding in the Elder Scrolls series, stuff like that. But the Quake 3 remix follows the years-old Quake 2 RTX remake. The new Quake 3 remix overhauls the graphics with higher resolution textures and makes updates to particle effects, among other changes. You can really see the impact of the textures in particular in the cable run under the floor here. Now, this is all marketed by NVIDIA, but it is made by separate modders, although they do work together. Some specific changes announced for the remix toolkit at GDC 2026 include randomized elements like the lightning scene on the end of the gun here, rather than a looping sprite, so this has some level of randomization built in. This also applies to debris, so when shooting walls, the debris rocks or particles vary in size, orientation, shape, rather than using a looping sprite. This was pretty cool, I thought. One of the other particle effects that they showed in a video is for gravitational effects, seen with the Quake 3 teleporter, so it'll suck in debris or bullets or other remnants as a result of that gravity effect. And NVIDIA noted to us that this particle effects also include attraction, repulsion, wind effects, air resistance, as seen in this demo video. Notably, Quake 3 was originally OpenGL, which posed a challenge for the D3D-bound remix tool. NVIDIA told us that the modding community built a wrapper to make it compatible, which again is just why I have always loved anything to do with the modding community for various games, because it's a really cool way to get technical with this stuff, and the motivation or the reward for it is making the game, at least in your kind of vision, better. So that's always fun. There are also dynamic animations from particle VFX settings, including the teleporter, the event horizon around the central black hole, things like that. The Quake 3 Remix mod will be available for free on ModDB for owners of Quake 3. The Remix tools are for anything made in it, so these can also be applied to other games. Mod groups are also working on bringing the most popular DLC in the community for Portal 2 over to the remixed version, with the base version already out. This video from MX Benchmark PC shows some of the other prior versions, and we also just learned that a modder has remade Mirror's Edge with Remix. User Soft Sound posted this mod of Mirror's Edge a couple days ago, the video of it. The modder noted that this work is in progress and cautioned that it's still being updated. NVIDIA did have some other announcements. They mostly fell outside of gaming. The gaming one that they had was GeForce Now, which, I mean, you all know how we feel about that. The entire existence of GeForce Now, I just disagree with on principle. So fuck everything about cloud-based rental services and extracting the hardware away from the users, but the Quake 3 thing was cool. And for our last one, welcome back to our once every 17 and a half plus years segment, Asshole Responds to Other Asshole on the Internet. The only question is, who has the bigger asshole? No, wait, editors cut that. That came out. This one's at the end because, to be honest, it's not really worth the time responding to, and I wasn't going to bother, except that I saw something interesting, which is that it appears that this guy is abusing the YouTube copyright strike and DMCA system to silence critics. And I don't know if you do this, but this is something I'm very passionate about. Got a whole new merch line we started, all because of when we got Bloomberged. I was sent this video by another creator who had his channel copyright struck by this guy. The channel name is Threat Interactive. And in this video, he's talking about NVIDIA technologies like DLSS and MFG, among others. He at times talks about game developers using it as a crutch rather than optimizing, which is also a sentiment that we share and have expressed. So first we're gonna watch something together. This is a video from Threat Interactive, and let's take a look together.
Neither AMD or Intel, if we include XeSS in this discussion, cannot magically clone
not how English grammar works, but
NVIDIA's several-year head start in research and development. So why do these companies even try? Because they know channels like Hardware Unboxed, Gamers Nexus, Digital Foundry, and all these other mainstream voices are going to be good little marketing slaves that are going to dramatize a non-existent race like some kind of infinite NASCAR event. XeSS looks like it's catching up. AMD's just behind NVIDIA.
That's exactly what I sound like. American Psycho here has a point. The media shouldn't do that.
I am specifically advising that you view the industry through a lens that excludes vendor-dependent aspects, because it's anti-consumer.
So first of all, oof, I'm over here catching strays. What the fuck did I do?
I look at the computer say, TI say, fuck.
Hardware Unboxed,
Fuck.
Digital Foundry,
Fuck.
Gamers Nexus.
I'm like, what do you say fuck me for?
I forgot to take off my good little marketing slave cap, to quote him, when I was talking about the DRAM cartel. Or when we went and stood in front of an ICE field office talking about NVIDIA's partnership with Palantir for global surveillance. I forgot the marketing slave cap was on during those videos, and it came across very positively for them, I'm sure. Before I even respond to that, although it was pretty funny, I want to start with the reason we're saying anything at all, which again comes back to the copyright strike thing. So while I was trying to learn about this guy, the reason I decided to say anything was because of this.
I hadn't thought about Threat Interactive, hadn't thought about Kevin Jimenez in a while. I was just doing my thing until I checked my inbox. And what do I see? A cease and desist letter from Kevin's attorney. Because apparently it's not enough to strike down every critical video me or other creators make. Now we're moving into intimidation tactics.
There's another creator here on YouTube called Threat Interactive. He either removes the comment, blocks the person, locks the Twitter comments, or even goes as far as submitting a false copyright claim to remove other people's YouTube videos, which is illegal, by the way.
Before you watch the video, the original version was illegally DMCA striked by Threat Interactive himself. He abused the copyright system again in order to silence criticism. He didn't just strike our video, he did it to at least 5 others that we know of.
Channel sizes 293 subs up to 170,000 subs were receiving YouTube copyright strikes via the DMCA system. I'm not familiar with the channels, but I did go and watch the unlisted versions of the copyright struck videos, and I didn't find anything outside of what I think is fair use. We found 2 copyright strikes against Dallas Drapeau, who criticized Threat Interactive's commentary previously. The strike was filed for the reason submitted by Threat Interactive as, quote, user is not have our permission to show our thumbnails, end quote. It appears that Threat Interactive also had a law firm send a cease and desist to Dallas, stating he was, quote, making numerous false and misleading statements about our clients and your content, all calculated to and likely to cause confusion and deception and result in damage to Threat Interactive, end quote. We also found copyright strikes filed against the game dev channel Smart Poly for recapping the Dallas situation. We found a copyright strike against FTAA official, citing reason, quote, user shows our thumbnails, end quote. A strike against yet another uploader, citing reason, quote, user did not have permission to use our thumbnails as seen on our channel, end quote. And then we found some against 2 more channels, a 7th and 8th strike for similar reasons. He is nearly ready to get a job at Bloomberg with this behavior. Now, I actually did try to start by posting a comment on Threat Interactive's channel instead of this, just because the size disparity between our 2 channels, I just thought it was the nicer way to do it. I'm not trying to punch down, but also, I mean, I'm not a big fan of people abusing the copyright strike system and also calling us good little marketing slaves when there's substantial evidence to the contrary. So, my attempt at posting a very cordial and civil comment on TI's video calling us good little marketing slaves mysteriously for at least 17 to 18 hours didn't appear on the channel. Now, actually, sometimes I still can't find it on the channel, but by the time I was able to finally get my own comment to load while I was logged out, it had been nearly an entire day, which means basically no one saw it. A bunch of other comments had buried it by then. I don't know why my comment was hidden from public view. I'm not sure if that's because he's manually approving the comments, maybe he chose to approve it late, or if it's because YouTube just thought it was spam. It's possible. I've seen it happen to other large channels in the past, including on our own, so maybe it got filtered. Obviously, with the copyright strike abuses, that sort of paints it in a bad light for him. But the point is, I was trying to find a proportional way to respond, because I'm not trying to like nuke this guy from orbit. There's a big disparity, and I don't mean that in a mean way. Just genuinely, I was trying to just like, hey, this is kind of what I think, maybe reconsider the use of the term marketing slaves. Thank you. But obviously, I wasn't able to do that because the comment seems to just not be there. Or at least most of the time it's not there, I don't know. As for his actual point he's trying to make, let's play it back one more time.
Neither AMD or Intel, if we include XeSS in this discussion, cannot magically clone NVIDIA's several-year head start in research and development. So why do these companies even try? Because they know channels like Hardware Unboxed, Gamers Nexus, Digital Foundry, and all these other mainstream voices are going to be good little marketing slaves.
Now, look, you all know our pro-consumer track record and how that's like the entire reason we exist. So I'm not going to verbally list off the accomplishments of the GN team in the pro-consumer space for the past 17 years, but I will play a 15-second montage of 800 thumbnails from our channel that show it. I would do more than 800, but to be honest with you, my screenshot finger got tired, so we're almost through these 800. There are another 3,000 though, and stop. That's 15 seconds. So that's, oh, that's right. This video, the one that was titled NVIDIA's Dirty Manipulation of Reviews. That's right. Where we talked about NVIDIA's marketing and DLSS and MFG and what I thought was NVIDIA trying to strong-arm us into featuring those technologies by levering access to engineers for engineering interview content, where they basically said that we needed to cover DLSS and MFG in ways that we didn't agree with. And anyway, that was peak marketing slave era for GN. I forgot about that one. For the last 6 months, NVIDIA has been pressuring us under threat of access to include MFG, or multi-frame generation 4X, on charts alongside devices that don't even support it. Even though we've said that it's not a like-for-like comparison and that it would be an unfair misrepresentation and outright lie to even do as much. And NVIDIA wants to reinforce, we think, Jensen's lie, where it's committed to making sure that 5070 equals 4090 is true. Now, us doing exactly what NVIDIA asks, even though it's in direct opposition to what we believe is right for the consumer, would be a breach of trust. And it would be lying. Sort of like what Jensen did when he said this.
4090 performance at 549.
Here's the bigger problem. NVIDIA has created a situation where you can't trust the independence of any MFG or DLSS coverage because of the way it's pushing these constant threats of access to hardware, or in our case, the not even implicit, but the straight up explicit statements that interviews with people like Malcolm or Guillermo are possible if we include things like MFG in the reviews. So they have undermined the integrity of any of that coverage. I personally cannot look at anyone's review where they talk about MFG or DLSS without wondering if they got the same talk we did. I'll also stand up for the others here. I mean, Hardware Unboxed in particular had the same experience as us when NVIDIA pushed Steve of Hardware Unboxed to, quote, change his editorial direction, end quote, and he defied them. Most of Threat Interactive's complaint, once you get past the just random insults that he throws in there, are that the media doesn't talk about how games could be built better rather than relying on upscaling technology. That's what he's complaining about. If only somebody, anybody in the media, the mainstream tech media, would talk about how upscaling should never look better than so-called native, and game developers shouldn't be leaning on upscaling technologies in this way. Like we said in the DLSS piece, once again, upscaling should never look better than so-called native these days, and game developers really shouldn't be leaning on upscaling technologies in this way. The only reason it ever does look better is because of issues with things like those presented by TAA in this scenario. Okay, all right, lucky drop, bad example, but his point is that we're marketing slaves and that nobody else is saying that game developers have become lax in their optimization efforts. But as RT has pushed into the market, and more appropriately, as game developers have become lax in optimization for some of the titles that are coming out today, okay, all right, that's two. But I probably shouldn't have searched for examples of us being marketing slaves in the video titled Do Not Buy RTX 4060 Ti Review, but the point stands. Other complaints in the TI video included one that the media frames the upscaling comparisons as a, quote, image quality race, end quote, and talks about comparing upscalers to each other in sort of this false dichotomy, this false choice between upscalers. But actually, our videos repeatedly state things like this. And we've done this already for DLSS and FSR. We would like to do it for XeSS as well. This currently is not a competitive comparison against those. So his premise and the way he represents our statements is just straight up wrong. The guy replied to some commenters online. He talked about how he, quote, loathes, end quote, Digital Foundry, which seems definitely healthy. And he also replied to another commenter to say that he called us anti-consumer marketing slaves because we, quote, spend the time reviewing upscalers instead of reporting on the issues only we, Threat Interactive, discuss, end quote. This is logic I like. This is logic I can get behind because it's very useful. By that logic, you know, we talk about different things on our channels. Like, yeah, we'll cover upscaling sometimes, but using that logic, he's a marketing slave because he doesn't talk about issues only we discuss. I haven't seen him speak to congressional staff in Washington, D.C. about AI technology and export controls and regulations. I also haven't seen him speaking to people from the Secret Service Electronic Fraud Department about rental computers. So maybe he's the marketing slave. I don't know if that's the bar by which we're judging people, where it's, do you talk about the things I do? Then I'm just saying, we're in a pretty good spot. But anyway, the things we talk about are different. It's really that simple. But when we at GN do talk about upscaling, it is pretty fucking critical, to the extent that actually it will sometimes get pushback from people who are like, whoa, dude, like, I like FSR, or I like DLSS or MFG or whatever. And, we try to be pretty fair with it. But anyway, we are relatively critical, I'd say. What I do care about, though, out of all this, I really honestly don't give a fuck about the difference of opinion. If there even is one, I really couldn't even tell if there was a difference of opinion. Half the time it felt like he was just saying the same stuff that I've been saying. So I don't know. But if there is a difference of opinion on the technology, I don't give a shit. I really don't. It's fine. Like, you can have a different opinion. I don't care. Like, that's why there's a lot of different channels. People can get a different opinion. What I do care about is what looks to be potential abuse of the copyright strike system on YouTube, because that is something I'm very passionate about, especially as it affects creators smaller than the entity levying them. So we've been very open about that since we got Bloomberged. We've got a shirt about it. That's how much I care about it now. And this guy has, it looks like, at least 8 strikes to his name that I could find. I was speaking with one of those creators over the weekend who received a copyright strike, and they confirmed these stories. So anyway, I feel very secure in my criticisms of NVIDIA. I don't really think anyone was under any illusions. I mean, on his own channel, there's a bunch of commenters who are like, really, Gamers Nexus, marketing slaves, and NVIDIA? Like, you chose to pair Gamers Nexus and NVIDIA. Out of all the companies you could have attached us to when you call us marketing slaves, you chose NVIDIA. It's actually funny to me, but, we're tough on them. I can also still give them credit, though, for things that they do that are actually good. I mean, the Quake 3 RTX remix thing in this, where they supported that mod ever, that's pretty cool. I'm happy to give them credit for that. Just like I'm happy to give them credit for things when they implement a technology well. But I guess that's kind of all I had to say about this. I didn't really want to get into it, but the more I looked at the strikes, I was just like, someone's got to say something. Who, I mean, he strike me all he fucking wants. I will not stop at simply being reinstated. I'll say that much. But I'll just leave Threat Interactive with one thought to take home.
There's always a bigger fish.
All right, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. You can go to store.gamersnexus.net to support us directly, or patreon.com/gamersnexus. And as always, subscribe for more. We have some big videos coming up. Another one hopefully end of this week. And we'll see you all next time.